Hi folks, today is time to try something a little bit different. Oh, this is exciting! We just stuck metal together. Now you might remember way back at the beginning of last year I said that 2019 was going to be my year to learn to weld, or at least get a little bit started on welding. And it never really happened, even though a very kind subscriber sent me a welder that he didn't need. So it sat in the corner, I bought all the gear, no idea as usual. Anyway, we're a year on and I've bought even more gear. I bought myself a little welding table. I think it was about 80 or 90 pounds and I will leave a link to it below. It took a little bit of head scratching to get it put together, but it's fine. I wanted something that I could fold away. I probably could have managed without, but judging by the little test piece that I did yesterday, wood is not a good surface to be welding on. So we're going to get this set up and then I'll give you a little rundown of what I've got and hopefully we can make something. Okay, so there's a few quality issues. The little keychain holding on the hook isn't particularly industrial, but apart from that, this is exactly what I need. I want something that I can park away when I'm not using it. And then the table locks out at 4 different angles. Another thing it's got is these guides here. So if you did want to frame something up nice and square, there's loads of slots for clamping things. And of course, being that it's metal, we can just put our earth clamp onto here. Now, as far as the kit I've got one of these Mighty MIG 100, which is like basically a glue gun on steroids, in that it's flux core, so you don't need the gas. It's a little bit messier. There's a few downsides, but actually for the occasional little fix and mend and little frame that you want to make up, it should be perfectly adequate for what I need. And then in here, bit of flux core, probably going to run out, so I need to make sure I've got some more spare tip, and you can adjust the tension in there. And then last year, when I was trying to get into it, I bought myself some gloves, a few clampy things, hammer, because you get quite a bit of slag form on the welds with flux core, a few more clampy things, a few more magnet things, and a self-darkening jobby, which I picked up on Amazon. So that's what we've got to work with. Let's hope that all those dozens and dozens of hours of YouTube videos I've watched on welding over the last 10 years have soaked in somewhere, and we'll see what we can do. Now, unfortunately, I've been a bit stupid and taken on a little project collaboration for my first welding project, but I've got my hotline to some welding folk on Instagram who have been really helpful, so hopefully between now and tomorrow I can teach myself how to wing it in welding. I think you just have to go super slow, because even on number 2 wire speed, which is almost the lowest, the wire is still coming out too far. So maybe I just have to go slower and keep it in the puddle. But that one felt better. I think what I wasn't doing is keeping the wire actually in there. I was kind of holding it off, thinking it was, yeah, it was much better that time. Oh, this is exciting. I know that is not very pretty and not very exciting, but we just stuck metal together. That is instantly satisfying. Okay, let's grind it and see how we did. It's clean and it's solid. Let's try a butt joint. Now we're one day on and it's time to get stuck into the actual project. Now it's going to stay under wraps for another week or two until I can release the project video. However, here are a few shots of me getting the frame together. There were several frames and components to weld. None of it extremely structural, but this is the sort of thing which is a good way to practice. There's a few different types of welds on there. So all went well, and it was all about finding that sweet spot on the welder. All of the steel profiles I was using were pretty much 3mm thick, so once I found that setting I could just fine tune it here and there, but there was a lot of trial and error to get to that point. Now where possible I was working outdoors, especially with the grinding, because it's just doesn't lend itself to being a mixed use workshop, being wood and metal. So where possible outside, and that's one benefit of the flux core welding. It shields it a little bit better than if you were using gas on a windy day. So there are some benefits, especially if you're limited in space. Now I ended up doing a few of these flats as well to make another part of the project, and at this point I felt like I was really getting into the rhythm of it. Still lots to learn and different penetrations and things that are not perhaps ideal, but actually as far as strength and just general tidiness of the weld, I felt at this point I was kind of getting somewhere closer to what I needed. I mean, it's not super pretty, but it's a much more, tidy than it was before. So that was a massive improvement. I was talking to a guy on Instagram called Hugh, and he is quite local actually, but he has been giving me some great tips at all hours of the day, and I hadn't realised that that maximum minimum on this simple gasless welder is not the amps, because it's a MIG welder, I think he said. So it's actually the wire speed. It's not just speed, that's actually controlling the power, the current. Anyway, turns out that on minimum, but the wire speed cranked right up, I'm getting a much better weld, especially for this sort of thing. So yes, I missed a little bit back here, but that in here it's a much tidier weld, much easier and more controlled. Before, I think being on maximum with all the joints I've done already, I was kind of taking in, it was ending up quite flat because it was really burning into the material. That's a much neater way to go. So I'm going to carry on that way, setting 5 or wire speed 5 on minimum, whatever that equates to, and keep going. That leaves us with this to fill in, which we can do once everything is square, because at the moment we've got like a nice little bit of flex to get this last bit right. So I battled on for the rest of the day and managed to finish up all of the components needed for the build. Now, yes, there's lots to learn, absolutely loads to learn, but I feel like I've just about mastered the basics. And yes, of course, person-to-person training, actually learning from someone in person, is far better than relying on Instagram messages. But such is the challenge of learning any new skill during lockdown, I guess. Anyway, I'm sure in the future I'll be catching up with people who will be able to give me more of a guiding hand on these things and show me the ins and outs of what I might come across in my basic needs here as far as metalwork goes. A few other things to bear in mind with flux core: it's a bit more smoky and fumey and messy. You want key ventilation. I had the fan on, I had windows open and doors open, but I still didn't feel like it was enough. There's some fumes that come off that stuff. So perhaps in the future, if I did get into it a bit more, I can see the appeal of the gas, but I'm not going to start blaming tools at this point at all. I felt that actually it worked really well. You might have seen me earlier on in the video using some anti-spatter spray, and that basically just means that those little spatters, those little droplets or blobs of weld that come off, they just chip off really easy and you don't have to be cleaning them off mechanically. Anyway, there is my little intro into welding. It's messy, but it's really quite satisfying, and I can see the huge appeal of integrating this in some of my projects. And of course, it's super strong as well. So things like brackets and storage ideas, and yeah, I can see this fitting in very nicely indeed. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm sure there'll be plenty of tips and criticisms down below, but that's it. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.